Do you find that you favor a more modern type of poetry, or are you drawn more to the classical poetry, or are you not even sure? Do you even have a preference? Hi, my name is K.A. Block, and I am the award winning poet and author of 4 books that consist of poetry and prose. My channel is called The Practical Poet, and I also have a blog of the same name where I feature the written copy of the poems that I feature in my channel where I do a video poetry reading. I thought might be kind of fun this week to do like a little challenge, a little classical versus the modern day challenge. And I'm going to go ahead and read an excerpt from a classical poem and a more modern day poem. And you can see if you favor or if you're drawn to one more than the other. Neither, there's no right or wrong. But just see kind of if something resonates with you a little bit more than the other. The first poem that I'm choosing to read is from the classics. This is from a book called Lisbon Poets. And my best friend gifted this poem to me when she visited Madrid last year. And quite an interesting book. It's written in both Spanish and then or maybe it's Portuguese. And then in English on the other side. The poem that I'm choosing to read a couple of verses from this week is by a poet by the name of Mario di Se Carnero, and I apologize if I'm butchering that. This is a poem called The Other One, and this was written in Paris in 1916. And here is just a little excerpt from that poem. The duplicitous masked liar, who after all spent his life in incognito, the phony moon king, the bogus bewildered, deep in his soul, a veritable coward. Rather than a page boy, a conceited jester, his soul of snow made up of nauseous vomit, his courage sung in all its arrogance, a contrary and more than diligent lackey. So that was an excerpt from the poem The Other One, again written in 1916, considered, in my opinion, more of the classical. And I'm going to go ahead and read to you now a couple verses from a more modern day poem. And when I say more modern day, this was written in 1975. And as you listen to these verses, you might find that they're a little bit familiar to you. So here we go. Late at night, a big old house gets lonely. I guess every form of refuge has its price, and it breaks her heart to think her love is only given to a man with hands as cold as ice. So she tells him she must go out for the evening to comfort an old friend who's feeling down. But he knows where she's going as she's leaving. She is headed for the Cheatin side of town. So if you recognized that, that is the lyrics from the Eagles song Lion Eyes that appeared on their album One of These Nights. And I know you might be thinking, well, that's not really poetry, but aren't song lyrics really just poetry set to music? At least that's how I look at it. And the reason that I chose to feature this as the modern day poem this week is because I remember in either college literature class or a high school literature class where we were assigned to dissect some poems. And when it came to the classics, I was reading through them and I wasn't quite sure if I was understanding the poetry correctly. I wasn't sure if I was interpreting it right, if there is a right or wrong. Typically, poetry is open to interpretation, but I wasn't sure that I was understanding what the message was or what the poem was about. Sometimes it was written in Old English and just used those big words and stuff like that I may not have been able to grasp. So when he handed out the handout with the words to Lion Eyes, I read through it and I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I understand this. I get this. She's cheating on him. That's what this poem is all about. And and so we had quite a long discussion on those song lyrics. And again, I know that they're lyrics and technically not poetry, but again, song lyrics really are just poetry sung or set to lyrics. So a little bit about history about each poem. I found this to be a little bit interesting. The author of The Other One, which is the classical here, Mario di Se Carneiro, and again, I apologize if I'm butchering that. He was a Portuguese poet and writer. He was born in 1890 and he died in 1916. So he was just 26 years old when he died. He had a little bit of a troubled past, it says on here. It says that he relocated to Paris after the outbreak of the First World War. but he had a moral and financial crisis, and he had a big quarrel with his father. He returned to Paris, where he spent his last months in deep depression and insurmountable grief. And it sounds like he did commit suicide at that young age of 26. And I do wonder about the moral crisis that he had. He has a poem in here, his second poem listed in here, and it's called To Be a Woman. And so I wonder if he, had some feeling that maybe he should have, been born as a woman, and that's where that torment came from for him. So anyway, very interesting history. About the second poem, the modern day poem that I read, Lion Eyes. This was written in 1975 by Eagles founders Don Henley and Glenn Fry. They actually wrote this song. They were in a bar, one of their favorite bars, one night in the mid 70s, and they were taking note of all of the beautiful women that were in the bar. And they kind of had a feeling that some of these women were not with their husbands. There was one woman in particular who was very beautiful, but she was with a much, much older man, and they just didn't seem to kind of be a fitting couple. And it seemed like there might have been a little hanky panky going on there. And I believe it was Glenn Fry who said, "She can't hide those lion eyes." And it is from there that the song was born. By the way, my source for that was Wikipedia. So, take that for what it's worth. But that's what they said about the history of that poem and the origin of the poem Lion Eyes. That song was the second single on their album, One of These Nights. That album reached the #2 spot on Billboard's Hot 100, and the single Lion Eyes made it to #8 on the Billboard country charts. And that was only one of two of Eagles songs that made it onto the country charts. The other one was These Shoes, which came out a couple years later. So anyway, if you are drawn to one or the other, great. I hope that you explore in either direction. If you like the more modern day poetry that you heard, that is what I offer more of on my channel. I give a more modern day kind of contemporary spin to poetry and poetry readings. So I hope that you would check out my channel, and maybe there might be something on there that resonates with you. And so with that, I thank you so much for sticking with me for this little classical versus modern day poetry challenge. I hope that you will check out my channel. Again, the Practical Poet, or my blog is thepracticalpoet.com, and I hope to see you over there. Have a wonderful rest of your day.